go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is David Rayla. I'm the hearing officer for San Francisco Public Works for this hearing. Ceres Waders is the clerk for this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterwards through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet, so if you'd like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing has been held to consider 5 items. Hearing Order 206520, which is to consider the removal for 2 street trees without replacement adjacent to 1050 3rd Street. Hearing Order 206521, again for 2 streets removal without replacement at 159 Lately Street. Hearing Order 206523, removal for 2 significant trees on private property with replacement at 135 Greystone Terrace. Hearing Order 206524, this is to consider the removal of 6 street trees with replacement at 78 Hay Street. And finally, hearing Order 206525 to consider removal of 1 street tree and nine significant trees on private property with replacement. And these are located on an intersection between Diamond Street and Diamond Heights Boulevard frontage. We'll see more on the presentation. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making no decisions today. Instead, I forward my findings for this hearing and make my recommendations to the Director. The Director will make the final recommendations. The hearing will proceed as follows for all 5 cases. I will ask Public Works staff to speak first and present the case. In this case, it's Buff, Bureau of Forestry. They will present the case, and I believe for all cases at once, or they will introduce at least. Then I will allow the property owner to speak. Any member of the public or protester, if there is any. Then the department again, if the department wants to address any comments. And then finally, the protester again, or the property owner, if there are any rebuttals. So each speaker will have up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. Now, the initial presentation is outside the bounds of these 3 minutes, just because it's kind of a catch-all presentation for everybody. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let me know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments once all those visual material are ready to go. If you are a member of the public or a witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments, then use Zoom raise your hand feature if you're on a computer to put yourself in the queue to speak. If you're dialing on your phone, dial *9 to indicate you're raising your hand. When it is your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If on your phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. So again, *9 to raise your hand, *6 to unmute. If you like, okay, perfect. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit a written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask that question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item, and we will now begin the hearing. So, order number 206-520. May I have Public Works make this presentation, please?
Mr. Rayla, excuse me,
Yes.
before we
Yes.
go to the first order, can we do item number 2, which is public comment? And this is
Oh, sure.
for, go ahead.
Public comment, members of the public may address the hearing officer, but not on today's agenda. Is that the number that you want me to say? Is that the one you're referring to?
Yes, it is. Yes. So if
Okay, great.
anyone has anything that they want to go into the record, they may speak now. I do see a hand raised. Okay.
Okay,
We have Josh. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I can hear you. Yes. Hi, Josh.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I was just listening to the instructions at the beginning, and that's the first time I've ever heard anything about allowing a rebuttal. And I would just like to make the public comment that allowing rebuttal from any member of the public, whether that's the applicant or someone protesting, would effectively give one person more time to speak than another, which I believe would violate procedures set forth for public meetings in San Francisco. The rules are pretty strict about ensuring that everyone has equal time. So I would just respectfully assert that the proper procedure for anyone wishing to make additional comment that would exceed their 3 minutes would be to, as you said in your introduction, submit written public comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Series, do we have an updated procedure? Because that's what I have in front of me.
Yes, we can get that from the director's office. And I will put in the chat the urban forestry address so that if anyone has any additional comments, they can email it to us.
So just to clarify, are rebuttal no longer allowed, or what's
No,
the latest?
That's correct. It would be only if you're asking someone a question, then they can answer you. But
Gotcha.
yeah, no
Okay,
rebuttal.
well, just okay. Well, then, just to reiterate the order here, it would be a property owner or applicant or protester, then the public or witness, then the department if it wants to address any comments, and that's it. Sounds right?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
And I put it in the chat for everyone. So
All right, wonderful.
or the address, email address.
Okay, great. Yeah, so any additional comment will have to be sent to me by email or in the chat, right? All right, thank you very much. All right, so with that said, thanks everyone. Let's get started with order number 206-520.
Cerise, will you be allowing me to share my screen?
Yes, you can go ahead now. Mr. Hoffman, you are muted, so you will need to start over and unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And thanks for the introduction, everybody. So just going to go through our slides here. So Street Tree SF is our street tree maintenance program. The Bureau of Urban Forestry initiates removal of hazardous and risky trees under our Street Tree SF program. None of the trees we'll be hearing today are Bureau initiated removals. The other reasons why trees are removed in the city of San Francisco are for Article 16, our urban forestry ordinance, where street trees and significant trees require a permit to be removed. And a lot of times construction projects will require street trees. So replanting and replacing street trees requires a permit. And our mission in the Bureau of Urban Forestry is to preserve and grow our urban forest, and while balancing the safety and needs of a constantly evolving world-class city. So we try to take mainly the condition of the tree into mind when we're approving or denying removals. And we also take into account other things. So with that, hearing order number 2065, this is out of order. So I'm gonna get this in order here. Excuse me. 206520, 1050 3rd Street, to consider the removal of 2 trees without replacement adjacent to the address 1050 3rd Street. So this is a pretty large development project. They're actually going to be creating a new street. And they are having to install traffic signals and traffic lighting. So 2 of the trees have been slated for removal, and that's where they're going to put new traffic signals. So these are the 2 trees. They're palm trees. They're in pretty fair condition. I would say kind of good condition, but due to the constraints of the project and the need for the traffic signals, they've been approved for removal. This is the traffic signal plan. You can see outlined in the red, that's there's going to be a new intersection there, and it'll be needed for pedestrian crossing and traffic control. And again, these are the locations of the 2 trees, and there's going to be a new street, to my understanding, right? A new intersection, brand new 4-corner intersection right there. So along with the new street, the project will also require new tree basins and a lot of new trees up and down the street, which the project has proposed. So the removal has been approved. The planting location will not be the exact same location, but there will be new trees along this corridor.
Thank you. Is that all for this item?
That's all for this item.
All right, great. I will then open up the floor for any member of the public wish to comment on this order. Is there anyone for 10050 3rd Street?
Did you mean the applicant or property owner?
Yes.
Okay. The person who had just chatted with me, Dwight, were you, okay, can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Were you the applicant or property owner?
I'm not the applicant.
Or you a member of the public?
Well, yeah, I live by the palm trees.
Oh, okay. So just one moment, please. We will hear from the applicant or the property owner first, and then he will get public comment, okay?
So is this
Hello,
anybody?
Dana Perry.
Excellent.
Speaking, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome.
Are you from this site address?
No, I am representing the developer.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
So I just want to mimic everything that Mr. Hoffman said. We are definitely building new trees along that corridor. If you would like, I can share my screen to show what's going to be placed on 3rd Street directly across, and also what's going to be placed on that corridor. I can also show where how close the conflict is to the trees and the pole locations.
Okay, give me just a moment and I will promote you to panelist, and then at that time you'll be able to unmute and then share your screen.
Sounds good.
Okay, just a moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. Asking for be allowed to share my screen. Okay. Wait, this is the one I want to share. Correct. So can you see my screen at the moment? How about now?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so this pole here is one of the traffic signals here, and there's another traffic signal here. And as you can see in an outline here, that there is a tree right in this location of the signal pole on the left, and also a tree just north of the traffic signal pole here on the right. So that's that's what necessitates us to have to remove those 2 trees. What we have here is what the new street plan will look like. So directly across the street, here's the location of the 2 poles. You'll see that we are planting 5 trees directly in front across the street, just north of that intersection. 2 palm trees, which are these fan looking items here, and then 3 other trees, which are the round trees here. Let me switch to another diagram, which shows where we'll be planting additional trees down that corridor. So here's the intersection here. The signals are over on this side here. Sorry, the 2 palm trees that we're removing will be on this side here. We will then be planting trees all along both sides of this new corridor here. There's trees and all throughout these planter areas. So keep rolling through. Additional trees as we're heading east towards Terry Francois. And this is at the Terry Francois end, where you see trees all along that entire corridor. So that is what's necessitating us to relocate those or remove those palm trees. And our plan, our original plan really is to hopefully relocate those trees directly across the street in the locations that in these 2 locations here. That's our game plan. If that doesn't work, then we're going to be placing palm trees in that location anyways. So that is our plan. So I hope that's helpful.
Thank you. I believe I saw on the plans, there may be some planters, some low impact development unit over there. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So you're the reason why I ask is because sometimes these kind of planters, although required, they kind of they may take away surface areas that can be used for planting, but it seems like what you are proposing is a net positive of the number of trees currently existing in the area. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct. Yes.
Do you have a number? Sorry,
Of trees, of total trees?
Yeah, total trees versus the ones that are present right now.
I don't have the exact number that we're adding, but we're adding upwards of 50 trees in the area, in addition to the park location just to the north of the site. That'll be a full-blown park with trees and landscaping and whatnot.
That sounds good. And all these, the species of the plant have been vetted, I believe.
That is correct. Our plans have been
Okay,
fully vetted and approved by everyone.
okay, yes. Yeah, we wouldn't want to put anything there that is going to struggle, right?
No, that's understandable. We're gonna be planting upwards of 60, 65 trees in the whole area, so.
I see. All right. Thank you. All right. Well, then, does the department have any comments? Mr. Hoffman.
I believe it's the public's time to speak now.
Okay, I definitely have the order mixed up in here then. Thank you. Yeah, that makes more sense. All right. Well, we'll have the public next, please then.
Okay, we have Dwight. Can you unmute?
Yeah, hi.
Yes.
Dana, the developer, is talking about adding 50 trees, but that's all on his development. Meanwhile, the 2 palm trees that we've cared for and watered for and paid for with our HOA across the street are going to now apparently be moved over to his development. Number one, that makes no sense. Number two, that de-beautifies our side of the street. And adding 60 trees to the park on the many acres of the development that Mission Rock is, it has nothing to do with our condo. And you're removing palm trees in front of $1 million condos and replacing them with traffic lights. And so the fact that you can have a park somewhere on the other side of your development has nothing to do with this issue. Number one. Number two, when Mission Rock was presenting to our HOA, we asked specifically about the street coming out, and we were told, don't worry about the street lights. We're going to have a right turn only. So it's fine. You want to add a street there now, but we didn't say, please take away our trees so that you can make your development beautiful and our side ugly with a street light. So I just think this is totally misrepresented. I think talking about 60 trees when you're removing 2 palm trees is rather ridiculous. And who cares what species they're going to put over there? What we care about is removing the palm trees in front of our HOA that we cared and feeded for the last 5 years. We don't want them removed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dwight.
It is a rather sensible point. Have we had, has there been a discussion with the HOA and developer?
No,
HOA,
we were just told that they're going to take away the palm trees. That's the discussion. Previously, when Mission Rock was presented, I asked specifically what's going on with this new street that's coming over. They said, don't worry, it's going to look like the street coming out by the Giants Stadium. It's right turn only. It's not a street. Don't worry about it. So I didn't worry about it. Now, all of a sudden, an email was sent to our HOA saying the palm trees are going away. And it's ridiculous. And so Dana, if you're going to talk about the new development, how beautiful it'll look over there, that's not really the point. And if you're going to take our palm trees and put them on your side, that even is more infuriating.
I see. Maybe we can foster some additional.
I strongly object to this whole program. Leave the palm trees, figure it out on the other side. That side can be ugly.
Thank you, Mr. Dwight.
Okay, and we have Michael had his hand raised as well. Can you unmute, Michael?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
So we're residents of One Mission Bay, and I guess the concern is, let's say threefold. The first concern is that this street from 3rd Street, on 3rd Street, from basically Channel to the bridge, there's 3 traffic lights there already. This would be the 3rd traffic light. So it kind of makes no sense why you'd be taking the palm trees out and adding another traffic light when you already have 2 there. The second one is the developer of Mission Rock has reached out to our community since 2018, and even in the original plans, that street was supposed to be a right turn only street. And there was no outreach to the public by the developer informing us that there is a change. And SFMTA never informed us that there is a change for that. There was never supposed to be a left turn into that new street. It was supposed to be only a right turn out. And this is Roscoe told us this in 2018 and 2019. I think there's a presentation right before the pandemic hit in 2020. And then sometime then, and then since 2021, we were all under the impression that that was what's going to happen. So this palm tree hearing, it might sound like a lot of residents are tense because it felt a bit not genuine, but from the developer, since there was no consistent outreach with community members. The third issue is this street light is going to be right in front of a very active garage. What's not shown in the developer's images is actually one of the photos. Right to the left of that first palm tree that's going down where a street light is supposed to go, that's the main garage for the tower of this building. And many people take a left turn out of that garage. And this was discussed with SFMTA, and they said, yes, we are allowed to take a left turn out of this garage. We had meetings, etc. We talked to them. So that's not going to necessarily change. And I feel like, yeah, this is kind of a big issue in terms of like this street being really changed compared to what's in the original master plans that were online and presented to the community. So I'm against the palm trees going away, mostly because it seems like
30 seconds.
There's no point have another street light there, and there's no official community outreach. I'm done.
And so thank you very much. Is there anybody else who would like to speak on this regard from the public?
Yes, we have John Nolte.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great.
Hello, Mr. Nolte.
A couple of things. I'm just hearing from the public and also looking at diagrams and also knowing the neighborhood. There's a couple of issues here. Why are you putting a mid-block signals and crosswalk in? It don't make sense, especially as 2 tenants have stated, this is in front of their building. You're taking out 2 mature palm trees. And I already know from experience with palm trees on Alchemy, Embarcadero and other places in the city where we have large palm trees. Those are very expensive palm trees, and to move them, there's no guarantee that they will last if they're moved across the street or any other location. So I would strongly urge that the hearing officer deny the plans to move the palm trees. Palm trees are again something that's on that side of the street. They're there, and I don't know what's going on. The developer didn't explain what the other 50 or 60 or how many trees are going on the other side or rest of the street escapes that he's referring to. What type of trees are going over there? Because we're hearing now it's a possibly a park and so forth. So therefore, you can have a mixture of multiple trees, and it doesn't mean that the trees are necessarily going to be on the sidewalk. So therefore, if it's a park, they could be inside the park, and landscaping, etc. So the presentation as it stands is obviously been changed, and the people that have been in the neighborhood are hearing conflicting information on the finalized plan here that wasn't presented to them originally when this development was being developed. So I would strongly urge that the changes not be approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. I believe we have,
And we have Michael Nolte. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
This is Michael Nolte, NULTY. It would seem to me that when there is a development happening and they are presenting plans, they have to come up with what they're doing on their side of the street. But it seems like an afterthought about how they're connecting with the neighbors. And it would seem like that was a secondary thought of doing outreach. They were more concerned about their development. And so that all sounds like they're improving the neighborhood, they're doing this, they're doing that. But as far as when you try to dig out the bulb of a palm tree, you have to be able to get all the roots or enough of the roots for it to survive. And it sounded like it was the developer that was making the presentation and not an arborist. And so it just sounds like, well, that's going to be easily done. And it is not easily done. So it sounded like they don't have the expertise when they were trying to make the presentation. The presentation was kind of just talking about after the fact, well, this is what we got to do. So again, I would also, it seems like everybody that's speaking from the public is saying that the trees were there first, and they have a right to stay there. And it seems like the developer on the other side of the street just wants to be able to do what they're doing and make it sound like they're doing something good for the neighborhood, but they're not really considering how they're also hurting another side of the neighborhood for their project. And if they weren't even clear how many trees they're going to plant, and that would be part of the planting, and it had to be approved by somebody besides just their development to decide how many trees are going on, and they're not really replacing the tree, they're taking away a tree. So and it's a mature tree to begin with as far as the palm trees. So I just don't understand there's a plus here, because the development is another issue altogether. It has nothing to do with the removal of the 2 trees. So there are emerging issues that are not
30 seconds.
Yes, please. There are emerging issues that are irrelevant. It's the relevancy is the removal of 2 trees and whether or not they should go or not. And I didn't hear a real good answer. There's no real mitigation measures being mentioned here. So please keep the trees there. Put the traffic lights in a place where they don't interfere with the trees, and that can be done. So mitigation, I don't hear the word mitigation being talked about here, so that the HOA can have something that they can live with. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Mr. Nolte.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. And we have Josh.
All right, do we have
You should,
Thank you. Can you hear me?
yes.
Yeah. So the Public Works presentation labeled this as a sidewalk improvement project. So that's what I had expected to hear then, was from a city project manager about that project. But this is not a city sponsored project. It's a private development, which is a very different set of rules and a set of analysis. I'm not clear why we're adding more infrastructure when, based on what I'm hearing from the people that live right there, it doesn't sound like it's necessary. It doesn't sound like this is part of the high injury network, which is usually the city's excuse when it wants to remove trees for streetlights. I'm curious if Public Works approved this before or after planning approved this, or did planning even consider those existing trees, or just did SFMTA even consider that there were existing trees when it was looking at this installation? I'd also note, it sounds like from the other public comment that the HOA has personally invested in these for a number of years. So I'm curious what discussion the developer had with them about compensation for that lost investment if this ends up being approved. Because, you know, what message does it send to people who take care of trees for years that you can just lose that work at any time and you don't have any say in it? And these are trees are a public asset. They are not gray infrastructure, they are green infrastructure from which we all benefit. Regarding replacements, I don't think palm trees are still on the approved street tree list. And that is, I believe, because from an ecosystems and environmental benefit, they really don't do much for our climate or our environment. I'm fairly certain that there would not be an approval for planting new palm trees on a public right of way. And then I would finally like to note that tree planting requirements for developments are a requirement, not a kindness. That's a legal requirement. The law sets out, Public Works Code Article 16 sets out how many trees a developer is supposed to plant for new projects and new construction. So net, this is a loss because the developer would have had to plant those trees anyway. Finally, if this order is approved, it should not read without replacement, because in February of this year, the Public Works Code was revised and it no longer allows for no replacement. If approved, I would argue that those trees, the developer should have to pay for those trees that are being taken out, plus the ones that it is legally required to plant. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm afraid I've lost the last 20 seconds of this conversation because of, was it just me or, sorry, could you hear me well?
Yes, I was able to
Or is
hear.
it just my mic? Oh, okay, so it's just my connection. Would you be so kind to Josh and repeat your last point for me? Having some issues here.
Josh, could you please repeat your last point for him? Are you able to hear me? Oh,
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I mean, 2 points. The first is that Public Works Code Article 16 has requirements for tree plantings when there's
Right.
new development and construction. So, you know, planting
Yeah,
a whole
that
bunch of
part I
new,
heard, yes.
you got that. Okay. And then the last part was that Public Works Code Article 16 was revised in February of this year, and there's no such thing as without replacement anymore. So if this is approved, those trees need to be replaced one way or another, and the trees planted that the developer would be legally compelled to plant. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. We'll consider your statement in my recommendations. Will, is there anybody else? Let me see here. I need to switch from one computer to the next. I think that we don't have anybody else from the public series.
no, I
So
don't see
we'll
any
shall
other
move
raised
on.
hands at this time.
Great. Mr. Hoffman, would you care to do you have any comment in response of these comments?
Well, I do, yes. I personally don't know a lot of the history behind the approval of these trees, so please email us so we can have some more discussion about that. And it's unfortunate to hear that there's a lot of you know, seemingly missteps that have brought us to this particular time. So we are wrapping our head around the new ordinances within the Bureau of Urban Forestry, and trying to overcome a lot of the challenges that we face with integrating trees into our living space as well. So again, I urge you guys to send us your emails so that we can continue these discussions. Thank you. That's what I have for that.
Okay, so what it sounds like to me is there's It's a bit of a conversation that has been lost or has not been had between the parties in the past, or some part of the conversation was not not clearly understood or agreed between the two. So I would encourage both the public and public works to refine these finer points about, you know, what was actually discussed, what was actually agreed. How is this came to be? Let's find out a bit about more of the history and the mechanism here, because I'm interested in knowing about those as well before I make a recommendation. This is pretty unusual, even for me. I've been here in officer for a while now, a few years, where a development on one side of the street triggers the removal on the other side of the street, without the entity, usually property owner, in this case HOA, having a clear agreement or understanding. I'm not saying that's the case, but definitely there's some, at the very least, some confusion around what happened. So let's spend the time and find out what happened. Let's see. I believe this concludes this order. If anybody have any more comments, please send it to me by the end of this hearing. And then let's move on the next hearing order. So we'll find it in a second. Hold on a second, please.
I can take it from here, sir.
Oh yes, let's do that. Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
This is order 206521, I believe.
Yes, correct. 206521, 159 Laidley Street. So this is to consider the removal of 2 street trees with 1 replacement adjacent to 159 Laidley Street. So this is again a construction related removal. This existing building will be demoed and a new 3-story home will be built. There are 2 trees considered. One is a smaller yucca. It's located in the footprint of the proposed driveway. And the larger of the 2 has been approved because it's just not a sustainable species in the narrow sidewalk. It's already grown over the basin size, so it's kind of encrusting over the sidewalk into the path of travel. And it's been approved because the species gives us a lot of issues. And a new tree will give more canopy cover and provide more benefits. So this is a image of the first tree. This is the tree that does not have a replacement location adjacent to the property because it's in where the driveway is going to be. So this is the Dracaena species. It's technically not really a tree. It's more of like a grass. It's actually more related to agave than it is to palms. So they're kind of more cactus-like. And their leaves have been described as sword-shaped. So you can imagine a sword-shaped leaf in a narrow sidewalk. We're just kind of trying to get more of these out of our urban forest and replaced with more suitable species. And here you can see the large tree that's grown over the tree basin. And as those trees age, they get a lot of rot as well. And having multiple stems just increases its risk for failure in the future. So just not really a suitable tree for this location. The replacement tree will be a Little Gem Magnolia. You can see the replacement tree will be exactly where the large tree is, and no replanting location for the small tree at this time.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Do we have the owner or permit applicant here? I see a raised hand.
Yes, we have Kylene Yen.
Yes, that's right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi,
Yes,
I'm
please
the
go ahead.
project architect, and basically, again, wanted to reiterate the presentation before. The owner would just prefer another tree. The tree is encroaching on the sidewalk, like the usable sidewalk space, and it's just not, like the leaves are very spiky and sword shaped, and not the safest thing for like a family. Yeah, and I think that's basically it, in addition to what has already been said.
Thank you. And I believe that's all. Mr. Rayla,
Thank you.
can you hear? Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's the only one speaking on behalf of the property owner.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, great. Let's move on to the members of the public, please.
Okay, go ahead, Josh.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I heard Daniel's presentation about issues that the tree is creating, and then I heard the project sponsors just mention something about this. It just isn't a great tree. I'm not sure which is which, but I would just like to point out that not liking a tree is not a reason to remove it. I'm also confused on how a development project gets away with a permit that would green light permanently removing a tree for a driveway, and we don't have a spot for its replacement yet. I'm just gonna guess that this project has taken probably at least a couple of years to go through the planning process. So at what point were we going to find a new spot for the tree? This is the project sponsors, this is their obligation, is to make sure that there's they've got to pay for that replacement. So how are we at the hearing years after this project has already, gone through design and approvals and permits, and we still don't know where the tree is going to go? I would point out that San Francisco has the smallest urban canopy of any major city in the United States at 13.7%. And we're currently not really gaining trees. Matter of fact, we don't even have a dedicated budget for planting and watering new trees. And so it seems to me that we could prioritize when we have a development that's getting permission to remove a tree for a driveway, that we could at least look around and find a spot to put a new tree that they can pay for and make sure that that goes in as part of that development. Not, here we are and we're just not sure. I would also point out that about 25% of all of the trees that are removed in the city are for things like driveways, which, just as somebody who cares about our climate, is pretty discouraging. That we are adding impermeable surfaces and taking away green infrastructure at a time we are now, I think, maybe 6 or 7 years away from irreversible climate change. But here we are. Anyway, so these are the things that I'm feeling really confused and frustrated about. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And we have John Nolte. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Couple issues. One, that it was brought up again that they wanted to take out these trees because at least one is going to be in the way of the garage. And then the other one is just a thorn in their sides. It's saying it's not good to have on the sidewalk, whatever. So my issue is, I think since these are mature trees, I mean, even if you're going to, as the arborist stated, that they're above stated, these are not technically trees, they're bushes or something else, but still they are in tree plots. Therefore, they are trees and indirectly, trees go into tree plots. So therefore, should be replacing 2 trees because there are 2 tree plots. And therefore, also since these are fairly mature size, if you're going to be placing an order to replace these trees for the development, then we want 36-inch box size trees put in, one at somewhere in the location in front of 159, the address stated in this order, and another immediately nearby. And I'm sure you could find something on that street to place a second one, and also put into the order that second tree and the first tree be watered for 3 years by the developer or property owner of this tree, and also put it onto their, because this is what people don't understand. Somebody builds this building and then they sell it, and then then you have another person there and they don't water the trees. So you got to put something in writing, make sure that these whoever this project, if it goes forward, it's in writing for 3 years to water the trees and maintain them, and also replace them if they are destroyed for some other reason for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other hands at this time.
All right. Can I have Public Works comment, please?
I just did have to make the point that for these construction-related removals where the tree does not have a planting location yet, or, we're still figuring out the language because of the new articles, the standard in lieu fees are being collected to go to adopt a tree fund. So I just had to make that point.
Because my understanding the standard in lieu fee, which I'm not sure how much it is now, but it's 1,500 around that.
It's
calculated.
$2,230.
All right, I'm definitely thinking about the earlier number. It's calculated in a way to account for the proper planting, maintenance, and care of one tree for a period of 3 years. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay. Still, for this particular case, it remains to be seen what the locations will be and the number for the replacement. Right. It is a valid point. There's 2 straight trees. Even though I have a hard time seeing more than one, but I think they're very close together. If I'm looking correctly. So we, normally I see one replacement unless there's some exigent circumstance. So let's have another conversation about this as well. Oh, and to correct my previous point where it said any further comment can be forwarded to me by the end of this hearing. It's actually you can send it to, make sure to get this right. Urban Forestry, one word, at sfdpw.org, and I believe 10 days will suffice. So again, if you have any comments or if you want to submit any additional evidence or materials and want me to see it, please forward it to Urban Forestry at sfdpw.org to my attention, and I will receive it and consider it in my recommendations to the director. All right, very well. So we don't have any more comments. I will close this item and move to the next one, please. Mr. Hoffman. Previous 206523
Mr. Hoffman,
and
you are muted.
135
Excuse me.
Grayson Terrace.
Yes, correct. The trees are on Villa Terrace. The frontage on Villa Terrace. So that's gotta be noted. So these trees are located on the private property. They're significant trees within 10 feet of the public right of way. The building is undergoing a large addition, and 2 significant trees must be removed to allow vehicles to access the project. You'll see in some photographs that the frontage road is already very narrow, and there's like no space to stage any real large equipment. So removing the 2 trees will facilitate access to the building site so that they can complete the project scope. And they have replanting on their plans that has been approved by Bureau of Urban Forestry. So the first tree to consider is this camellia tree. It's tucked back here behind this fence, and it's large and spreading. It has a pretty good vigor, and maybe not the best structure or form because it's been competing with a lot of other trees. It has been approved for removal with replacement. And the second tree to consider is a rhododendron, some species of rhododendron. This tree is stressed, maybe from drought stress or maybe other competition with another organism or possibly even a fungal infection. So that tree has also been approved for removal. Here is their planting plan. So Villa Terrace frontage here, and they'll be putting in some pretty interesting large stature trees, 36-inch box bald cypress trees, and a 36-inch box black pine. That is the end of that presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Just a quick question. Normally developers, they need to ensure the proper care of the trees as they do their project. Some they wrap it, some they protect it with posts and so on. Was there a particular reason why this would not have been done in this particular case that you know of? I'm sorry, Mr. Hoffman, you're muted.
Yeah, so I didn't do a site visit. Steve Keller did a site visit and met with the project developers, and because of this narrow driveway here, they can't get anything larger than like a Ford F-250, and they're already proposing to, I believe, remove this odd planter box. But once they drive a truck into there, this tree and the other tree directly behind it, the rhododendron, will be in the way of any other truck. And you can see the property line here won't allow them to, go that way.
Yeah, so I'm guessing trimming the tree back also. It looks pretty close to the edge, but was trimming also considered
Well,
It seems like if it was, they will be pretty substantial.
yeah, like I said, I haven't done a site visit, and I feel that if Steve Keller were to approve this tree, even pruning would, the scope of prune that you would have to do could potentially kill the tree. You know, they would have to take maybe more than 30 to 40% of the canopy, which is not recommended, especially in summertime. But you know, who knows when this development's gonna happen, doesn't matter, but you know, those are the things he considers when he, you know, looks at this.
Okay, thank you. Let's see some questions for now. Thank you. Let's move on with the owner or applicant.
Hi,
Okay, we have Karen Curtis. Oh, go ahead.
great. I was hoping I could share a screen as well.
Yeah, yes, I already promoted you to
Great, thank
panelist, so
you.
you should be able to share now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
My name is Karen Curtis. I'm with Red Dot Studio. I'm an architect who's here representing a homeowner. And I know the word developer gets thrown around, but this is a person who plans to make this their forever home. And I wanted to be very clear about their goals here, because we definitely are not treating this site as a piece of paper, but it's a site that has constraints, but also beauty to it. There's a heavy amount of fill and water and things that move through this site that you can see makes a lush tree area at the back. But those trees have grown very close together. And it is obvious that some are having some stress from the amount that they have grown together. So there is a tree protection plan, just to mention that. There's a different tree protection plan. The photos that you had were from before construction started. So the Urban Forestry has approved a tree protection plan for the palm, for some significant trees that are back in this area, and that is in place and on site. In addition, there is protection around the existing trees that we're here about the hearing about today. You can see that Greystone Terrace is a very tight spot. It has a limited turning radius, and our hope was to take most of the construction trucks and park it on our site, so to be good neighbors. Villa Terrace is also very tight. A truck would not be able to sort of pull off the road and access the site. It would be blocking the road. So our hope was to be able to turn in this one-way street through here and be good neighbors by keeping most trucks off the road. In addition, we'll talk about some water lines that go through. As we close up on this area, we had an on-site meeting with Stephen Keller to go over this, to look at the trees, look at the health of the trees, look at what was happening, and meet with the contractor, say, what's the minimum we could do out of significant trees? And the minimum are these two that are marked in blue. These are the trees of significance on site. So this one comes down here, and this one comes down over here. Behind this fence, already sort of before we started doing site protection, there's another group of significant trees that will be staying on the property. If you start to look from the street level, you can see the street context. There's an on-site planter that is here that we have a minor encroachment permit for, in order to keep that a green space after the construction and keep planting there. That is the location where we have the replacement trees, which we'll get to in a bit.
30 seconds.
So as we look at this, one of the other things that happens is the PG&E line runs through here, and it'll be very difficult to upgrade service and do what's needed for all electric infrastructure without taking out one of those trees. And the significant trees that will remain are over in this area. So that is it. These are the two that we're asking to remove. These are the two that we're keeping. These are the others that we'll be replanting, along with other things other things besides tree being replanted through here. Thank you.
Excuse me, Ms. Curtis, could you zoom in a little bit? Start to see on those trees that you're talking about. Thank you. Significant tree, okay, they protected, and those two in the back. Okay, now the picture is clear for me. Thank you. Great. Is there anybody on the side of the owner or applicant? Developer, architect? No, anybody from the public then? I think we have Josh. If I may, I'm sorry, I don't know your last name, so I hope Josh is okay.
And okay. And also John Nolte had his hand up earlier and I lowered it and sent him a message in the chat, but I think he wanted to speak as well. But here's Josh. Can you unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me?
There, yes.
Yeah, Josh is fine. By the way, Josh is fine. It sounds like,
Wonderful, thank you.
but it sounds like, but for construction, we wouldn't be talking about the health of the trees. And I'm not sure if I heard this correctly, but it sounds like construction has already started. So it would seem that this is a foregone conclusion if construction is already happening and construction has been planned out in a way that would, necessitate the tree removal. One of the things that concerns me a little was the statement by the I guess the project sponsor or the architect that the construction access is required because they want to be good neighbors and not put trucks out on the street. I appreciate that. I live on a block. There's a lot of construction happening right now, but I sure wouldn't want to lose trees just because somebody was afraid of parking a truck in front of my house. So I hope that does not become the precedent for what is construction access that rises to the level of requiring a tree removal. I also heard there was a tree coming out for PG&E, which again sounds like prioritizing gray infrastructure over green, which is our city is pretty good at that. And then I would just note that, regardless of the merits of this particular case, I've been, coming to these removal hearings for, I don't know, longer than I should admit. But I just noting how routinely we sign permits for removals because of construction and how rarely the opposite is true. And as a matter of fact, in a recent public filing, even our city's urban forester said that it was a driveway in that instance. He said he can't remember a single time that a tree was prioritized over a driveway. So just pointing that out. And I think also that this is the third of 3 agenda items that's for construction. And I do not think it's the last. And just how disheartening that is as somebody who really cares about our urban canopy. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Josh. And we have John Nolte. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Great. Yes, when I was looking at the first set of plans that the Buff had shown, it was clear to me once I saw that it's a whole block and has 2 entrances of 2 different streets, and they're choosing which street, apparently which street they want to take out trees. So you have a whole parcel that has 2 streets on either side, and they could choose which side, which streets to as was pointed out, to bring in trucks or construction or whatever to build, whatever they're going to build on the property. So I only hear a plan 1. Where's plan 2? Where's plan 3? And which one would be the best to save the trees that are currently there? And significant trees are already there. And I didn't really hear about, since we're talking about 2 fronts, I didn't hear anything about, we're only on the agenda is referring to significant trees. I'm not clear why aren't there any trees on either side of either of these streets that this parcel butts to. So why aren't there trees in front of the property? That's a question. And also, why are we? It was brought up that you do in lieu fees, but again, I am concerned that the that you're taking out significant trees. And unfortunately, I am one of the persons that amended the code for significant trees. So I am concerned about what's going on here. Since it has to be so many feet in diameter, so forth, to be a significant tree. And I'm concerned about how this is being handled, and again, for construction, and it doesn't, you know, I didn't hear really a replacement plan. I heard sort of a plan, and it was only because of two issues: the PG&E and the and trucks. So that doesn't really answer any question, because, you know, if you're building a building, you have to bring in things. What do you need to build the building? And unfortunately,
For
I'm
30
concerned
seconds.
if that parcel is wide enough for what they need to build, what they plan to build on that property. Thanks. Since no drawings were shown of what they're building either. That's all.
Thank you. Sorry, I lost you guys for a second. Thank you. Do we have another member of the public here? I don't see any more raised hands. Nice. Yeah, I get a warning that my network bandwidth is low. Great. All right. Do the best we can. I'm really impressed by the public's comments so far. They're, you know, pretty on point. And yeah, it is kind of unusual for me too, to have so many construction related orders in one hearing. Usually it's improper maintenance, so maybe it's a sign of the time. All right. Does Public Work have any comment to address any of the comments that have been raised so far on this order?
No, sir.
All right, thank you. Very well, I will close this order and I will move on to the next one. Which is 206-524. This is a big one, or the bigger one. Removal of 6 street trees with replacement 78 8th Street. Mr. Hoffman, please take us away.
Okay. So these trees are all the same species. They're all evergreen pears, Iris Kawakami, which are planted extensively throughout the city. These specific trees were planted in 2017. And just as a pretty challenge that we have for almost every single evergreen pear in the city, they're susceptible to fire blight. And most of these particular trees have low vigor and, haven't really grown much at all in, since they've been planted. So you can see each tree has been assessed as being poor to fair at the most, or very poor in condition, mainly because of just, harsh events in their life. So tree number 1 is this tall, skinny one on the left. Doesn't really have any main scaffolding branches that are contributing to a canopy that are significant. And, it's got that little top out the thing at the top. So that, it's a load at the top on a skinny branch, which, if strong winds could break off. Tree number 2 probably looked like tree number 1 at one point, but got topped severely or failed during a storm or was vandalized or something. Now it's really small. Tree number 3 is tall and skinny, similar to tree number 1, really low canopy to trunk ratio, and doesn't have a lot of vigor. I mean, it looks green right now. These pictures were taken when it first leafed out. You know, but when they get the fire blight later on in the season, they tend to lose a lot of their leaves. And then tree number 4 is probably the best out of all of them. Has some fair vigor, some you know, not the best branch attachments, but it's a small tree. So tree number 5, tall and skinny, you know, no significant branches. And then tree number 6 is actually the largest tree and the most mature, but it has suffered a large failure in the past. You could see it was topped at some point, or it broke in a storm or something. And this photo was taken at the same time as all the other trees, and you would expect this one to have a lot of green leaves like the other ones, but there's like hardly any leaves on it at all, and that's likely because of the fire blight. And we can see some dead leaves that have been there probably since last season. So it's just a really low vigor tree, not really contributing that much, unfortunately, just because it's old and has had a harsh life. So the trees will be replaced with catalpa. There's actually a couple blocks down, there's some nice catalpas that had really nice flowers earlier. So I looked at those. They're good tree for that location. And then around the corner, they proposed to plant Linothalamus, which is the Catalina ironwood, which is a native species. That Catalina ironwood would be in the place of the evergreen pear. Sorry, they're all evergreen pears, but the large evergreen pear, excuse me. And that's the end of my presentation for this one.
Thank you. Do we have the owner or developer or otherwise representative? Yes, Mr. JD, I believe.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to share my screen.
Okay, give me just a moment and I'll promote you to panelist.
Quick point, I deactivated my camera to improve my own bandwidth, and I noticed some quality improvement, so that's just it. Still, you know, conducted a hearing, everybody.
Thank you.
Right, essentially.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First, I did want to say, you know, thank you to the Hayes Valley neighborhood and the city for really trying to put in these trees pre-development. You know, I walk through the neighborhood all the time, and I do really appreciate that effort. And I'm sad to say on this particular block that, you know, I've just watched the trees decline since I got involved as the landscape architect on the project. Sorry, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lee Stickles, the landscape architect for the project. And, you know, since 2019, I think the trees looked a little bit better back then. They still didn't have great form, but I've, you know, watched them unfortunately get diseased. A couple of them have died. And a couple of them, the leader is just completely topped off. So this was 2019. Here we have today, 2022. Last week, I took some more photos. You know, in terms of replacement trees, we're absolutely committed to do a really great job with the replacement trees. We're proposing a continuous soil trench for the trees, along with permeable paving above. So we really want to increase the soil and water to have healthy trees for the project. And as mentioned, we're proposing the pink Dawn Chittapal for along Octavia, as well as the native Catalina Ironwood on Haight Street. And these will both be larger 36-inch box tree. We're committed to getting these in a 6-foot clearance for the trunk and a 3-inch caliper. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody from the public who wish to speak on this order? Yes, Josh and Mr. Nolte. Josh first.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. I can't believe that the entire department presentation talked about these trees as if it were just a health issue, and we had to wait for the development team or architect to come out and let us know that this is actually construction related. I would, as a member of the public, just appreciate knowing if this is construction related, let's just be upfront about that, in addition to whatever the health of the trees is. Also, the trees are not old. They were only put in 7 years ago, and apparently several of them were topped. And I didn't hear anything in the department's presentation about whether there were fines issued for those illegal topping that might have led to their decline. And since these trees haven't been around for so long, it doesn't seem like it'd be that hard to figure out who did it. Or alternatively, since Street Tree SF was implemented in 2017, maybe it was a city contractor who ruined them. And was there any consequence for that? I generally agree that these types of trees don't do well. I have planted them with Friends of the Urban Forest as a volunteer planting leader for many years. I am fairly certain they are also no longer on the city's approved street tree list. My bigger concern is that we know that they've been treated in violation of the law. And so what are we going to do about that? Are we just going to say, well, we'll take them out and start over again? Or the final point I want to make is that this is a development. And as I've mentioned in earlier matters, there is a legal requirement for tree planting for new construction and development. So what it sounds like to me is that this developer is getting a windfall because they're getting to take out the trees that exist and I don't know, replace as many as they're taking out, and then not have to not have to plant new trees as the law requires. Which, by the way, that is a critical part of our urban forest plan, because again, the city does not have budget for planting, a dedicated budget for planting and watering new trees. Getting these new trees in through development is one of the ways that we get new trees at all. So it sounds to me like this is just a wash. We're taking out some trees that we know somebody hurt. We don't know. I don't know if we fined them for that. I don't know if we collected fines for that. And this developer basically gets to take out what's in the way and just put in put in as many as are taken out. That's seems to me that is a disservice to the public and to our public green infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Mr. Noted.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's start with the project. Or actually, this is in the Octavia plan, and most of that money goes to DPW. And DPW is collecting all these fees for the tearing down of the freeway and not taking care of the trees that are on Octavia Boulevard, which is his lawn. See, Lacey wants to say hate, but actually majority of the trees are on Octavia. So, and I'm not clear about, they say that they were planted in 2017. Why weren't they? Well, why weren't there stakes around them? Why did DPW not care for them, or whoever planted them in 2017? So that's only 5 years ago, and so now we're talking about 5-year-old trees that had not been taken care of, watered. Right now, the developer is taking out the dirt around them. I had to have DPW go out there and put yellow protection around these trees because they were digging up the dirt and trying to kill the trees. So I'm a little concerned about the developer just thinks this is a wash. They can get the trees that they want. I don't think that's right. that this, I didn't hear anything that these trees have to go. So it's not in the way of the development, so therefore there's no reason to remove them. So I have not heard anything saying that these trees need to be removed. So therefore, I object, as I did when I protested these trees, to the removal of these trees, because there's nothing being said that they need to be removed. And just because the vigor is not where the arborist wants them at, does not mean that they are not still thriving and they're better, doing better 5 years being planted there than say this new set of trees. So I would expect these trees to stay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Let me see if we have anybody else. Mr. Michael Nolte, please.
My name is Michael Nulty, N-U-L-T-Y. This is in my supervisory district, and I would like to point out a couple things. One is I saw planters on the sidewalk in one of the pictures. I'd like to know if the developer is doing basically a greening plan. That wasn't really mentioned. They're just talking about the trees because they have permits, but I'd like to know, as a member of the public, what's their green plan for the whole project, besides removing trees and replacing them, and which would include the planters that were pre-existing in one of those pictures that was presented by DPW, because I mean, where's the net asset? You know, developing for housing is one issue. But you know, the community needs to know what other assets this development's going to be offering to the community, which includes the greening. And I haven't really heard that in this presentation. I think a further presentation could be made by the project sponsor about answering that question. You know, I think it's nice to show trees that are mature, but you know, in pictures, that's kind of like photo ops. But the trees will be a lot immature when they're being planted, and they take a long time to grow to maturity, and 3 years or plus for them to start to take root in the new location, which is the proper way of pointing out that new trees are going to be planted there. I'm more concerned about what happened to the old trees, but we can't really do much about it because now they're in poor condition because of neglect. And who was responsible for neglect would either be the property owner, prior property owner, or the city, since the city now has to take over the street trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Let's see. All right, we don't have anybody else from the public. Mr. Hoffman from Public Works, would you like to comment on these points?
Well, first I want to apologize for not having the information in the slide about this being a construction-related project. That's my bad, and I'm sorry for that. And if you guys want to know more about the events that surround this tree, as far as topping events or maybe failure events or something like that, feel free to send me an email or our urban forestry at sfdpw.org an email, and we will send you that information. I personally don't know that off the top of my head or very much history about these trees at all, so I can look into it for you if you want.
Thank you. I would also like a copy of that information. If I could summarize what is being asked is kind of the history of how these trees came to be. They were planted in 2017, as you said. I would like to know who did the planting on behalf of whom, and who was supposed to, or who did take care of them. And since some of these, they seem to be either, vandalized or at very least improperly trimmed, I would also like to know if there's been any claims or fines or assessments on these trees, as is often done. Thank you.
I will get that to you.
Oh, yes, and one more point from the landscape architect. There was a question about quote the greening plan, and I've seen a snippet there with the thermal pavement. If you could send to me the entire plans, that'll be for me to review. That'd be great. Thank you. With that said, I believe we covered all the bases for this particular case. I'm also, for the record, excited to see the state of these trees. This location is close to my office and is a pretty familiar walk of mine as well. It is a beautiful boulevard, and to see these trees not doing well, it's it's very unfortunate. Very well. Let's close this. Let's close this order and move on to the next one, which is order next and final one, which is order number 206525. I was wrong. This is the bigger one. Removal of 133 and 9 significant trees on private property on and around Diamond Street, Diamond Heights Boulevard. Mr. Hoffman, please start the presentation. You're muted again, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you. So the proposed plans are to remove 1 street tree, Monterey cypress, and remove 9 significant trees. This is a large housing development. There are 9 duplexes and 4 single-family homes. And there's been a lot of, I think to my knowledge, there's been a lot of neighborhood input, and which has led to the preservation of 5 street trees and 3 significant trees. The tree replacement, they have approximately 20 planned sidewalk trees and 5 to 10 new trees planted in significant tree areas, or within 10 feet of the public right-of-way. So the site is Diamond Heights. It's a pretty iconic location. You can look out and see the entire city from right here, and Diamond Street, which wraps around and goes down. So this is a very graded site. It's just a hill, essentially. So the project changed in response to community feedback. They are now preserving trees that they had otherwise planned to remove. Before they were going to remove all the trees, and now they're preserving all 10 Monterey cypresses. They're preserving views, and whereas before they were going to take views away, I guess, and so on and so forth. So this was the some changes in the project. You can see the before and after, and this is really the product of community response and the project leads and developers working with the community, to my understanding. So here are the trees for removal. This tree here, it's not significant, it will be removed. And this is the only street tree. This tree is actually like right on the street tree line, like right on the public right-of-way edge. And these two street trees are going to be preserved. Again, removal and preservation. They're also preserving these street trees that are right at the right-of-way edge. This tree is not within 10 feet of the right-of-way. It will be removed, or it's been approved for removal. This not significant tree will be preserved, and another street tree to be preserved. And again, up the block even further, we have 3 significant tree removals and 3 private tree removals. There's also an olive tree that's been approved for removal. It's a significant tree. The tree has got pretty poor structure. It has good health though. And up on the Diamond Heights Boulevard frontage, they will preserve this large significant tree right on the edge, and they'll remove these 2 kind of in the middle there, and these 3 as well. So it has to be noted that all of these Monterey cypress trees are very mature trees. Their structure is fair at the most, and they are susceptible to branch failure just because of the nature of their wood. So removal can, these trees are going to fall apart eventually, and yeah, they were approved for removal. And that's the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. Quick question. Could you kindly redefine for me a significant tree? I don't think we went over it in this hearing yet.
So a significant tree is any tree that's within 10 feet of the public right-of-way. So that's can be on your private property. But it also has to meet specific criteria. So the tree, it has to be a tree. It has to be at least 25 feet tall or have a spread of at least 15 feet. And that's, I believe, the definition, in a nutshell. There could be some little other things. I don't have it right up in front of me.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. May I have the applicant, developer, architect, representative for this area, please?
We have Mark Babson.
Hi, and if I could share
Yeah.
my screen as well.
Okay, then I will promote you to panelist. Just a moment.
Thanks. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see it and we can hear you.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Hi,
thank
everybody.
you.
Mark Babson, project sponsor. And this is just going to provide some context for the trees that are being removed, proposed to be removed. As Dan said, 3/4 acre site, never been developed in an area which hasn't seen much housing. This is actually a housing opportunity site. It's a block from a Safeway, 2 different bus lines stop here, 5 different playgrounds within a 10-minute walk. This is what the site looks like now. There are 33 trees on the site, including 25 Monterey cypress that really give it its character, how people think of it. As I mentioned, there aren't many housing opportunity sites. These three neighborhoods collectively have had 0 projects of 20 or more homes in the past 40 years. I think we all know we have a housing crisis, and there's so many resources here that are nice for people to live in. So it's a balance. This is what we initially proposed about 1.5 years ago. It's 24 homes, and these are row houses going down Diamond Street that would remove all of the 33 trees. And met out there with Stephen Keller. He implored us to try to get creative and see if we can save a couple trees. A year of negotiations with the neighborhood and going around and back and forth and architects. And we originally proposed 4, saving 4 trees, then it went to 7, then it went to 9, and ultimately we're at 10 trees today with the housing pushback. The site plan above is what we were before with the row houses. Then you see down below the 10 trees in green, and then the yellow, the houses have been pushed back into the hillside so that the trees are the character of what one sees when they go by on the street. This is a close-up of the 10 trees. The blue is a big public viewing deck with expansive views. And here it gives you a sense of the site plan and how much more green there is and how the houses are pushed back. As Dan showed, we've gone from 0 to 10 trees being saved. We've opened up a public view. Now, instead of no cypress, we have 250 feet of continuous cypress frontage, and also cut the curb cuts in half. We're also adding a ton more trees. We're going to end up with 54 trees. So it's 65% increase over the 33 that are there today.
30 seconds.
This is the before and after. Diamond at Beacon. This is Midway on Diamond. This is Diamond at 29th. That's really what people are going to see. It's a pretty dominant view. The public walkway and public stairway with the cypress on the right. There's the views. The stairway with the cypress on the left. And finally, Diamond Heights Boulevard, we're saving 3 large cypress. So that also has a character defining feature. You're going to see cypress on both streets. And that's the presentation. I'm here for any questions. I'm going to stop my share. Okay.
Thank you. I see someone from the public with the raised hand. Let's have him or her next, please. And Josh, of course.
We have Asher Etlin.
Mhm.
Go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello, my name is Asher Etlin. I'm a San Francisco resident, born and raised, and I've been asked to read a statement from Steve Chafin, who's leader of the 1900 Diamond for All, which is a community group organized around opposition to the proposed project. Good afternoon, my name is Steve Chafin. I live at 1819 Diamond Street, directly across from the proposed project. I haven't previously been involved in land use or housing politics in San Francisco, but with this project proposed for the hillside across from my home, I became very involved. Along with Betsy Eddy, a longtime neighborhood advocate and co-president of Diamond Heights Community Association, and Olga Milan Howells, the long-standing president of Upper Noe Neighbors, I formed 1900 Diamond for All, a group designed or organized for the purpose of expressing the community's collective concerns about this proposed project, with the goal of changing the project to reflect those concerns. Primary among our concerns was preserving the Monterey cypress trees and the character of the site that is created by those trees. Our group invested a considerable amount of time and money in this effort. After 1.5 years pushing for a better outcome, addressing environmental, neighborhood, and legal concerns, incurring substantial costs, legal, architects, and expert fees, significant changes have been made to the project which benefit the neighborhood. One of the changes is the preservation of 10 Monterey cypress trees on site. At the outset of our dialogue with the project sponsor, no trees were to be saved. After months of architectural studies and hard-fought debates, the number of preserved trees increased from 0 to 10 trees. In addition, other changes from the original project include a public viewing platform with 180-degree panoramic views of downtown San Francisco, Oakland, Mount Diablo, and the Bay, a public stairway which will connect Diamond Heights with Upper Noe. The architectural design now blends into the neighborhood context. The townhomes have been pulled back off of the street and onto the hillside. Substantially more wood is being used on the exterior to better blend in with the natural character of the neighborhood. And the number of driveways has been reduced by almost half, from 15 to 8. Due to these significant changes, the former 1900 Diamond for All leadership supports the revised project. We feel this is a very good outcome, especially given the political environment in our city and state. In keeping with our compromise, we support this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. If we may have the next previous Josh. And I also have quite a few. Great.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I just want to give some context. I live in San Francisco, but I'm attending this hearing right now. I'm in a tent on a mountain in the Sierras, in the middle of where the sugar fire swept through last summer. And I'm here because I'm working my butt off trying to help this forest rehabilitate. And it is wildly disheartening that as I sit here, sweaty from working all day and smudged and filthy from the ash and char of dead trees, we're here talking about taking on a microforest for luxury housing, not affordable housing, that features more dedicated spaces for cars than it does for rich humans. Also, I note that the presentation indicates that these trees are susceptible to failure, but provided no evidence of that. The reality is everything falls apart eventually, but we don't approve trees for removal because someday they're going to die. I'd also like to add that there should be no boasting about the fact that we've gone from a plan that started as a plan to cut down every single tree on this lot, all 27 of them, to cutting down less than that. Because originally that was the plan, and that reduction was not community feedback. That was due to a massive pushback that cost private individuals tens of thousands of dollars, tons of meetings, and countless hours of their time, and probably hours and years off their life to make that happen. The original plan was an insult to the community and, I would say, to nature. We shouldn't be bragging about something slightly less than the annihilation of this site. It's a misstatement also to say that these trees are going to be replaced, because there's no replacement that could possibly make up for what we're about to lose. We're taking out big, grand native trees and slapping in small statured non-native trees when construction is over. We can call it whatever we want, but it's not replacement, because I don't think that's what the living creatures who are currently living there would call it. And speaking of, I've heard this described as a vacant lot. This is not a vacant lot. There are thousands of creatures that live there. A biodiversity specialist wrote a report based on the observation of the amount of wildlife he observed, and it was remarkable. And I'd be glad to share that with the hearing officer. There are other actually vacant spaces in San Francisco, like in the Bayview and Hunters Point, but it doesn't serve us to build rich homes for rich people there, because they want to feel like they're on top of the world, parking their Range Rovers and Teslas in their private garages. That's the trade-off. We tear down homes of other living beings that don't have the ability to come here and make public comment in defense of their family homes. And while we tear down our ecosystem in the name of profit, we're tearing down climate resilience and increasing our carbon footprint, all while we're in climate crisis, historic droughts, and now moving full speed ahead into the next wildfire season. So I know I have no chance of beating this. The odds are totally stacked against anyone protesting, because there's too much money at stake at this point. But I'm going to fight for my environment over money any day, because that's the right side of this battle for our environmental future. And as soon as this meeting is over, I'm going to go out and water the dozens of baby trees that I've planted by hand across acres of burn scar, which is a lot more than anything I can see happening in the city I call home.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment. Mr. Nolte is next, I believe, right? Yes.
Hi, good evening. This is John Nolte. I have a couple of statements to make. I'm glad that the current neighborhood group was formed with by other North neighborhood groups, so they could help in mitigating the issues of this 2.5 acre lot or space, and also the issue of again pine trees. You're taking mature native trees and you think that's a given, and then hearing what Buff said at the end there, they're going to fall apart. Well, everything lives and goes through a cycle, so that's life. But the point I have here is that you have a developer who's developing these parcels for profit, and so we had the neighbors wanted to get more out of the development, so they did what they had to do. And so I'm concerned about that who is going to take care of these Monterey Pines after they sell the townhouses in 3 or 4 years, 2 years, whatever, how long to build them. So my question is, what can Buff put on the plan here? Besides, saying you're going to put in all these other trees. I don't care about the other trees. I'm concerned about the trees that you're preserving that are existing there. How are they going to be preserved, and how are they going to be protected during construction, and also maintained, and also looked at every week or whatever by Buff to make sure that they are not being hurt or destroyed by the developer. So I am concerned about these trees and how are they going to be protected during the development? Because I didn't hear anything about that. And I think that's more important, because that's what this is, a tree hearing, and I want those trees to be saved. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Let's go ahead and over to the shelter. I'm not sure if you said that right. Molly.
Yes, hello. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening. I'm calling from India, so it's morning here. I am the arborist who is working on the project. I work for SBCA Tree Consulting. I'm the principal there, and I am a ISA qualified arborist, certified arborist, and a track risk assessor. So I've been working on the project for about a year now, over a year, and made about 7 site visits. Our firm was initially the one who did the site survey, and honestly, at the beginning, I didn't think that any trees could be saved, but the neighborhood wanted the trees to be saved, and the project sponsor, I believe, worked very closely with the neighborhood to save 10 trees, and we worked very closely together to really kind of define the root protection zone of these trees. We also have been working with Ellen Shea, who is the arborist who was hired by the community, the architects, engineers, contractors, in an effort to investigate where these roots are. So it's actually been a pretty wonderful experience for all of us. We've been working as a team together, and we essentially defined the areas where the foundations are going to go and any other encroachments are going to be made. And we hand dug around all of these trees to really reveal any roots that might be lost. And we actually didn't find very many roots because of the rocky soil of the site. The roots were not very predictable. So we are really making very minimal amount of root damage to preserve these trees. And we do actually have a very good tree preservation plan. Again, I've been working with Ellen Shea, and we have defined all the encroachments that are going to happen with these trees, and have a pretty comprehensive way of saving them. We did find one tree at the top of the hill. I forget the number, but that tree does have it's probably like about a 3-inch root that has to be cut, and so we have a watering program just to get the tree as healthy as possible before we have to make those cuts later on in the season. We don't want to cut those roots now because it's the spring, summertime, and uptake is great. So anyway, it's actually been a very good project to work on. I'm very impressed with how the project sponsor has really listened to the community, and yeah, I feel proud to work on the project. We are very interested in preserving these trees, and I'm going to be making monthly visits, or anytime there's any kind of encroachment into that area. We'll be out there and reporting to the city, reporting back to the neighborhood, and really that's all I have to say. I do also like I approve of the species selections of the trees that are going in. I think they're all very good choices, and yeah, so that's basically it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next. I'm not sure if it's Julia or Michael Nolte. I think Michael was last. I don't want to be wrong. Can someone correct me, please?
Yes, we have Julia.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I'm a San Francisco native, and I am new to the news of this project. I think the loss of this open space and 23 native trees is criminal. 22 established Monterey cypress trees and 1 established olive tree. I'm concerned about the replacement trees not being able to provide homes the way the current cypress trees do to some of our favored and loved birds of prey. I'm concerned about the loss of canopy, something we cannot lose in this city. And I'm concerned about the welfare of the trees that are going to be saved. I'm concerned about the stress of the project on them. And I don't think enough has been said about that. It wasn't made clear what type of trees are going to be quote unquote replacing. And it went by very fast, so I'm not clear on the number. It doesn't seem like it's 1 for 1. What was clear is that they are going to not be grand, overarching, majestic, old growth native trees, but instead more landscape, what we see in the sidewalk type of trees. These cannot provide homes for birds of prey. So I think this is an incredible loss, and I really hope that this produces more talks about how we can preserve open space and how we can preserve old growth native trees, and how and where we can plant Monterey cypress trees. Monterey cypress trees are extremely vulnerable. We have had blight affecting our Monterey cypress all along the coast, and these beautiful 33 trees in this little plot in the middle of Urbania have managed to survive. And so I think, yeah, that's basically my point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe we have a Mr. Nolty next.
Yes, Michael Nulty, N-U-L-T-Y. I heard two buzzwords being used in this presentation so far. One is we're in a housing crisis. A housing crisis only exists if you want to believe there is a housing crisis. And the reason why I point that out is because people want to live in San Francisco. So therefore, the politicians have to say, well, we're in a crisis, so we need to have more people live here. Well, and then that produces, well, something has to give, which is what? The land. San Francisco is only 49 square, well, anyway, we're only so big because we're on a peninsula. We can't grow San Francisco. So developers come in and want to see what they can do, where they can put in more housing, and so then the community that currently lives here has to worry about, well, what's going to be giving? What gives are going to happen? Well, we're going to lose in this project what I call negative ions, which was helping the community when they live there. We're going to be losing the value of various things that were there before. A whole environment that was there before. I used to live on a hill in San Francisco. I won't mention which one. It's now full of houses. And this is the same thing here going on. It's on a hill, has a beautiful view, and now it's going to be turned into more houses. In other words, we're giving up the beauty of San Francisco to turn it into a mecca of houses and concrete. I think, when this San Francisco was first called Yerba Buena, there was some beauty to it. Now it's turning into a concrete jungle. I think, you know, when the neighbors have to fight the developer that has deep pockets to get mitigation, but eventually developer wins. That's all I'm hearing in this whole presentation. When a arborist says, "Oh, all the trees should have gone,"
30 seconds.
through spending money, now some of them are going to be saved. Well, you know, arborists, just because they're arborists doesn't mean that they have the right motives involved when doing a presentation. So, you know, this should be more about saving trees because it's a tree hearing than about taking them out. And here we go. Here again is another agenda item in this presentation that has to do with development and how trees are always on the losing end. I'm sorry to say, I was last week. I was at a place that I grew up in, and the first thing I noticed when I got out of the car was the smell of trees. And this neighborhood is going to be changed forever after this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, very well. I think that's all from the public. Let's move on to Public Works. If he has any comments.
So I just have to make the point that every tree that was approved for removal has been assessed by a tree risk assessment qualified arborist, and they have noted evidence of previous branch failure and other defects on the tree that help the tree meet the criteria for removal. So that's my first point. The second point is that this is probably the most extensive tree protection plan that I've ever seen, and we have had weekly check-ins with the site arborist representing both teams, the developers and the neighborhood. I personally have been on site a number of times to see these root excavations and protections in place. So I trust their arborists and I trust their arborist experience. So I believe that they are doing everything in their power to protect and preserve these trees. And they're even doing things like pouring like a concrete conduit around the root. So the root's going to go through the concrete. So, I mean, they're taking great lengths to protect these trees.
Thank you.
Which I've seen personally.
Thank you. I believe that is all for this item. One thing I would like to request is I heard there's been a lot of back and forth with the neighborhood and the developer, and Mr. Hoffman have been part of that. So I would like to follow up on that and get praise on the depth and you know, the various items. This is a pretty ambitious project. If anything, just for the size, but also for the location. So I bet there's a lot of nuance involved. I would like to be part of that too. Let's reconvene after this for a way to get a hold of this material, please. And anybody else that wants to forward material to me, again, please forward to Urban Forestry, and they will make it available to me. Thank you very much. I think that's that concludes this item, and with this hearing as well. Let's see.